How's it going, guys? I'm Connor from Running Warehouse, and we're back at it with another episode of the Running Warehouse Connection, our weekly show where we bring the running community together to talk about anything and everything running related. Now, this week we've got a special guest. He's an ultra marathoner. He's a 5-time USA Trail National Champion, 4-time USA Trail Runner of the Year, and what I find craziest, he's set several ultra marathon records on the treadmill. We've got Mario Mendoza. Mario, how are you doing today?
How's it going, guys? I'm doing well, enjoying the summer weather.
Great. It's great to have you. And I think when I first started hearing about you, there was all these articles coming up about this crazy dude running on the treadmill for the ultra marathon distance, and you're setting records. And it just got me thinking, like, I struggle to run even an hour on a treadmill. You're running multiple hours at record-setting pace. How did you get started doing this, and what was your inspiration?
Oh man, it's kind of funny to look back at it. Actually, I had been working in this community of Madras where it's a third Native American, a third Hispanic, and a third white, and I had just wondered what can I bring to this area that I enjoy working in, and just what can I bring in front of these kids that could keep them entertained and make it easy for them to see a whole 100% effort on a athletic performance side. And so really when I started researching like different ideas, the simple one was bring a treadmill right in front of them in the gym and just do it right here, right? So it was either that or do some laps on the track, and the gymnasium just seemed like a better fit. So it was really simple at first, and I looked at the record time and I was like, okay, even though we're at altitude, and the bummer about the gym is they didn't have any air conditioning, so it was like we're kind of risking it, but I was like, I think I can just get it, and I did. It was really just close call, but it went really well. The goal was just to inspire these kids and show them that we're committed to them, and that if you want to achieve something in life, you've got to train for it, you've got to target it, and not let fear hold you back. And so what we wanted to accomplish from the record was really accomplished that day and the weeks to come. So that was pretty cool. The funny thing was just to see how much like coverage of it there was. It was like, who would have thought something really silly like that would get so much exposure? But I think it was just the right combination, just having all those kids get so excited about it and getting inspired, and just having a good day. I often look back and think like, what if I wouldn't have hit it that day? What would have happened? I don't know. I'm just happy we got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised it kind of took off just because everyone can relate to running on a treadmill. Everyone at some point has hopped on one, and maybe you've ran an hour or so, but for how long you went, it's just an impressive feat. And let's go and let's look at that first attempt. It was the 50K. How long were you on there? What was your record-setting time? I know it has been beat since then, but how did this all go down? You said it's in a gym. Was this at a local high school, or lay down everything that went into this first attempt?
Yeah, it was very actually organic. I had mentioned it to the high school principal, and he was really excited and on board. I had been volunteer coaching out there for over 2 years, and so I had a connection with a lot of these kids, and it just, they were very helpful. They were like, yeah, like, we got to do it here. We got to figure out how to do it, how to still have our normal day of classes. And so we planned out a schedule that lunch would fit right in there. And we planned out a schedule that if we were going to get this record, that the last 20 minutes, the kids could all be in there. And so it just, honestly, a lot of it just fell in place so smoothly that I felt, okay, this is the place to do it. And so I looked at, Michael Wardian's record, which at the time was 2:59, 47. And so I looked at, okay, I need to run right at like 5:46 per mile for 31 miles to get it. And we used it as a fundraiser. So we actually had to go right at world record pace from the beginning, because every mile that we hit at record pace was gonna fundraise for us. So um, so we went after it, and in the end, I was right at like 2:59 flat. So I didn't get it by like a ton. It was maybe 40 something seconds. But it was enough to make the gym just explode, and the kids get so excited about it. And it was awesome. Like, I showed up the day we were gonna do this thing, and all of a sudden I'm like sitting down, and there's like media people sitting on the benches, and I'm like, what? Like, do I have a secret agent or something? Like, I honestly had no idea. Like, I was literally just picturing this thing like just for the kids. But I guess the high school got so excited, and they just started contacting people, and everyone was into it. Now, like, looking back at it, it was cool, because even though I would say the second world record I hit was a lot better in terms of performance, there's nothing that's gonna ever take away that special day. Like, we just had so much fun. Like, the kids were so into it, and they continue to talk about it. Even the seniors that graduated, they're like, that was, even though there's like COVID, that was so special to see that, and to have my friends there, and my family, um, and the support of the community. It was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate that, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about the second record attempt, which was obviously the 100K record. Um, what went into that record? How was that different? I know the first time was in the gym. That second time, was that just in your house? And what pace did you need to hit to get that record? What were you going for?
Yeah. So that one is completely different story, because the first one was in January. It was January 14, and this pandemic hadn't hit. So nobody was really into like racing on a treadmill. And so when the pandemic hit, in March, just a lot of people started going after these records, and the races became popular. And so my 50K got broken, and then we got invited, here in Bend, to be a part of a virtual treadmill race, where there would be like 8 to 10 different world record attempts. And I kind of hesitated at first. I was like, oh man, that experience I had was so special. Like, I don't know if I could replicate it. But I was kind of convinced, just because it didn't look like there was any races coming up soon, nothing on the radar. And I was able to get Max King and Renee Mativier from Bend to join the field with me. So then I was like, okay, this is getting exciting. And I looked at the 100K record, and it was 6:26 pace for 62 miles, 62.2. A guy from Great Britain who was like a 2:15 marathoner, and I was like, oh man, that I was kind of like, that sounds rough. Like, to only slow down 40 seconds a mile compared to the 50K, and then but have to go twice the distance. I was kind of like mind boggled by it. But I was like, even if I keep it exciting, it would be fun. And I was like, we could use it to do another fundraiser and just continue building momentum in the community here. And so I convinced myself to do it, and we planned it in a way where both Max and Renee would be running during my attempt too, so that I'd feel like I have, just like kind of camaraderie. I'm not out there alone. So they were on 2 treadmills next to me, like right around 6 feet apart. So we just had enough distance from each other. And the cool thing, the part that helped me this time in terms of performance, is that we went down to sea level. So we set this up to be like as fast as possible. We went down to Eugene. We had air conditioning and we put it at 55 degrees, and just try to get every kind of component that we could to help us and have this environment to run as fast as possible. So I think that is what made the pace a little less scary when I looked at the help I was going to get, and that I was going to wear the fast shoes, the new Brooks Hyperion Elite. And so all of those things really kind of just in my mind were like, okay, at least there's a possibility, at least there's the chance to hit this thing. And sure enough, we were close. We were about 35 seconds at 50 miles. And so I had to pick it up to have a chance, but I was like, I'd rather blow up and not finish than not try. So I picked up the pace to almost 6:10 per mile at the end, and was able to get back on record pace by mile 57, and then get 70 seconds under by the finish. So it was pretty special. It was just us, no people around us, just us and our family, but it was unique, and so it was a world record number 2.
Yeah, that's super cool because 6:26 pace for 62 miles. When you think of 1 mile at 6:26 pace, a lot of people would think that's crazy, and the amount of prep and just strategy that goes into that and mental toughness is just unreal. Was there any part in that race where you thought it wasn't going to happen, or what was the toughest part of that 62-mile journey?
To be honest, at the halfway mark, when I compared how I felt there to the halfway mark at the 50K, I was kind of like, I'm in trouble. I was like, I am in big trouble. But then I remembered the other 100K races that I've done, like when I won the Bandera, which is the 100K US Trail Champs. I remembered how I felt there, and so I compared this 100K feeling to the 100K, not comparing 100K to a 50K. And that's what really changed it for me, was like, if I was in a 50K, I'd be in trouble, but in 100K, it's more of a grind. Like you really grind out the pace for many, many miles, and you have to be really mentally tough. And so right at the halfway mark, I actually slowed the treadmill down a little bit. I was not going to stop it because I didn't want it to mess with my head, but I slowed it down. I took a couple sips of coffee, like cold brew, and I just got like into a happy place and just got into a way more positive mental state. And from there, I just started breaking it up. I was like 5 or 6 miles at a time, just break it up. And I would honestly say that in 100K, probably the hardest miles are like 38 to right around 48 to 50. Like that barrier of crossing the 2/3 mark is really big, because then you get to that place of, okay, I only have a long run to go. And in a long run, you can run, 6:20 pace. So it's like that 2/3 mark is very, very tough, because you can start getting negative and think like, oh my gosh, I still have a whole nother 50K to go. And so it can get very tough, but getting past that was huge. I knew honestly that at 57, I knew unless the treadmill broke or like somehow my body cramped, I knew at that point I was going to get it, because you start really smelling the finish and it's coming.
Yeah, that would be crazy if the treadmill did break, because not even something that's in your control. But is that something like, I imagine you've probably used several types of treadmills now, being kind of a treadmill running expert. Is there a certain type of treadmill you lean to, or are you basically just using what you have at your disposal?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It just happened that the gym that I'm sponsored by here, Recharge Sport, they have wood weight treadmills, and I'm used to running on those the most. They're a little bit easier on the skeletal system, and even though in my opinion I think some other treadmills give more bounce, I think this one, because it's easier on the skeletal system, for a longer ultra, I think you're better off. And it also has the best motor. They're also the most expensive, so that's like the drawback of it. But I was able to coordinate with them to be able to use it both times. And the second time, Renee Metivier is actually the owner. So it was easy because she was going to run too. So we just transported 3 treadmills the second time we did the record. So the first time she let me take one to the Madras gym, and that's what I'm familiar with the most. But I've used Nordic Track, and they're good too. Some of them are really good for like incline and getting that power hiking training that is actually pretty good training on a treadmill for stuff like that. But for this attempt, the Woodways worked really well.
Well, you set the 50K record. It has since been broken. Then you set the 100K record. What's for the future? Are we going to see more treadmill records? Are you moving more towards the trails? What's the future looking like?
That's a great question. I've kind of been avoiding it. I was so kind of burned out after this last one. Like I felt awful for at least 2 or 3 weeks. But a part of me, I will be honest, a part of me was thinking, what if I got the 101 mile too, and just go down as the greatest of all time treadmill runner? I was like that would be pretty epic, just go 3 for 3. I was looking at it, and I know the guy that has it, Zach Bitter, and I think when I look at it, I think it's possible, but I also haven't run a great 100 yet. So I'm sort of like, I don't know. But I think I'll take the next month to really, really think about it. My heart says go to trail, because I love trail. I really enjoy being out in the mountains. And right now there's a lot of like potential fastest known time records you could hit. And I think there's a good chance that maybe in the fall there'll be some trail races. So I want to make sure that when trail races open up, I'm not like burned out and done with my season. But there is a chance. I don't know. I maybe I'll leave it up to people to do a little vote and see if I should go for it or not.
Well, awesome. I mean, I think I'm excited to see if that 100-mile record gets attempted, because I think you've got a very good shot at getting that. But, we're just going to have to see what the future holds. But I really wanted to talk about these treadmill records, because that's what got me excited about you. When we first started, like, your name was just going everywhere. Mario Mendoza, Mario. But the treadmill records is mainly something that's been the last couple months. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get started running, and then eventually getting into this ultramarathon scene?
For sure. I actually was a soccer player in high school, and I went to the high school in Cambria, Coast Union, so Cambria, California, and I was really, really kind of had that mindset of wanting to be a professional soccer player, and did really well in high school, did really well in soccer tournaments, but I hurt my knee, and that knee torn ligament issue really forced me to sort of take a step back in soccer and look at what do I need to do to get 100% healthy again. And so I was told that running was a great way to just re-strengthen all the muscles and the ligaments and that whole area. And so I got into running a little bit more. I would say that I had dabbled with it because I always liked running like the physical testing 1 mile. And whenever I was invited to go for a jog to get in shape for soccer, I'd always go. So I had a little bit of a background, but it was after the injury that I really started getting into it, and started jumping into some races after one of the local coaches asked me to come out and just give it a shot. So it was it took me a while to really fall in love with running itself. I would say at first I kind of loved more just that I did well in it, because I did have some pretty quick success with it, and I think that at first I just enjoyed that people recognized who I was or that I was good at it. And I think in high school the ego is a little too strong. But after I got into more outdoor like trail type stuff, I really really fell in love with just the purity of running.
Yeah, and then this early success in running obviously played a factor, but how did you get into the ultra scene? Because I mean, just running for, competitively, then moving to, you know, 25, 30, 40, 50 miles is a whole nother step. How did you get into the ultra scene?
Yeah, it's I would look back for me at the initial draw in running, and it was actually the connection to being outdoors and the connection to being out in nature. I grew up on a farm, and so when I was off school and off work, like I just liked being outside. I could honestly be outside the whole day, and so that was already built in me, just the joy of being outside, and I think that's why trail running and mountain running really clicked with me, because it feels more like play, and it feels less structured. It feels more like I'm out just running the terrain that the mountains give me. And so because of that, I was pretty instantly drawn to trail races. I ended up running first the 10K and then the half marathon. And then I kind of stayed at the marathon and below for like 2 or 3 years. But it was always like intriguing to think, okay, what is the possibility if we go farther? And maybe I looked at, like, it was right around when I'd been training for 7 years that I felt like I had enough of a base to start going a little bit longer in these races and these trail distances. And so it was 2012 where I did my first 50K, and that was here in Oregon. I was already living in Bend by then, and I already had been trail running for a couple of years, um, and I liked it. I actually really liked the 50K distance. I would almost say the 50K distance is probably easier to get through than the marathon, because you're on trail, you get to stop, you get to hang out at aid stations. It's really the 50-mile trail distance that really kind of gives you that first big obstacle of getting through it and understanding the difference in the distances.
Yeah. Well, now you've been running ultras for years. You're a veteran on the scene. Is there any specific moments that you're most proud of? Um, yeah, just from when you started ultramarathon running to today.
There's a few that stand out. I would say the most proud I've been has probably been the two world championships where I got top 10 at the ultra running championships, and led the US team. I think those two teams have been really really significant for me, because we're able to bring home a medal, and I was able to give my team the best and represent the US well. I think that when I was a kid, I just never expected to do that well. Like I thought I would, do well in local races and maybe state, but at the world level, it kind of freaked me out. And so I was very proud of that. I think just the thoughts of not expecting that, and just thinking that even I had even told myself that if I just helped the team score, that I would be super pumped and proud, and so to see that happen was kind of unreal for me. So those two races are very very special for me, and I also have enjoyed some of the like the trail championships that I won. I think the Moab one was probably the biggest surprise win I've had in my career, because I was up against Joe Gray, and I mean everyone was pretty much running for second place there, and I just think I got lucky that day. I think that I just had a very magical day, and it just helped me mentally to think, okay, don't put limits on what you can do, and just believe that you can win some of these races. So that was a breakthrough. And looking at honestly just this year, that 50K, even though time wise, I would say we can go a lot faster at sea level. I just think that those those moments when athletics becomes much more than just a result, I think that's what sticks with a person the most. Like that's what you'll remember in your career, when you knew that there was a bigger purpose than just you accomplishing your goal, but you're accomplishing a goal for the people around you, and you're accomplishing something for your community, and the people you love. And so that's what I remember, just those world championships and the things that we've done that have been organically just really special. I'm very proud of that, and
Yeah.
I hope there's more.
Yeah, I think the world championships are something that, at least in the trail world, we hear about, but we don't really know what goes into them. Can you talk a little bit more about how you get to the world championships and what the whole atmosphere is like at these races?
Yeah, you have to qualify for the team. Usually, the teams are made up by like two or three of the U.S. championships, or one of the really prestigious, maybe skyrunning races that are in the U.S. So they usually announce it about 8 to 12 months ahead of time, when which races will be the qualifiers, and that's how you get on the team. If you do really well at a world championship, you're a lot more likely to get on next year's team, because a lot of times the top US person automatically gets a spot for next year. So that's how you qualify. In terms of the atmosphere, to be completely honest, in Europe, trail races are so much more prestigious and way bigger than they are in the US. You picture in the US, and maybe you hear about Western states, and it's a pretty big deal, and there's a lot of people that come out. In Europe, like all of these big races have that kind of following and exposure, and just like, towns filled with thousands of people coming out to cheer for the runners. And so mountain running over there is just held with higher regard. And because of that, I would say that other teams, like other countries, tend to take it a lot more seriously. Like some of the teams that are really tough to beat, like Spain and France, they get out there and they're training 2 or 3 weeks before the race. And even before that, during the year, they make visits to see the terrain and to see what they're going to run. Where we kind of, our team just gets there like the week of, and we're super jet lagged, and none of us know what the route is other than like looking at maps. And so I think we're finally starting to take it more seriously, both like in terms of like the level of athletes that are going out there, and also just really doing our part in wanting to do as well as we could. It doesn't mean we've brought home medals, but I think that the U.S. has the talent to bring home like a lot more gold medals, which would be pretty cool. Because in terms of level, we have it. It's just I think it just takes time to realize the impact it has. And I was excited this past year because the teams did super well, and guys like Jim Walmsley, went out and competed, and that changes, the prestige that makes it like, okay, this is relevant and important and big. So So I love it. I think it's such a cool feeling when you have just spectators on these incredible mountain ranges, and you're up in the middle of nowhere, and you're thinking, how did you guys get out here? Like you're just like, what? Like you come up over this peak and you're like, seriously, you probably had to hike 5 miles and 2,000 feet of vert just to come and cheer. And that's special. It makes you feel special, and also makes you more motivated to push and to get through it. And for me, wearing the jersey and seeing my teammates give everything they have, I don't I don't think there's anything better in sport than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think trail running is really growing in the States right now, and give it a few more years, we might start seeing, a little bit more prestige. But like you talked about over in Europe, like when I heard about UTMB and like the crowd there and just the atmosphere, I've heard it's just unlike anything you've ever seen in the running world. So, that excites me. And then, you talk about Jim Walmsley and, him kind of coming up in the scene. And I feel like Jim has been a huge factor in kind of mainstreaming trail running and making it cool again. What are your thoughts on, Jim and some of these newer kind of crops of ultramarathoners really kind of sparking the competition in the ultra scene?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's great. I've always said, if I get to the point where I cannot make any more US teams and I can't even qualify, but the team does well, I would be excited. Honestly, I think it's changing the sport, and I've had my fun for many years. So the neat thing is, I think it's awesome. I think they're kind of breaking limits in terms of what is possible, and even they're inspiring guys who have been in the sport for a long time. I'm inspired. I'm inspired seeing things that I honestly didn't think were possible, and even inspired to see that some people are really built better for trail running, and that it does take a different um, physiological makeup, and so you look at guys like Jim, that they can hold their own on the road, but on trail it's a different beast, and a different style of efficiency and running, and a mental aspect. And so I'm excited by it, and I think the trend will continue to go that route, and see a lot more younger guys who could do really well on road and on track, but they just have a love for the mountains.
Yeah, what for someone who maybe is on the younger side and looking into ultra running or mountain running, what do you think some factors are that will show success? Because you look at guys like Jim who have very fast times on the track, sub 14 5K, but there's also guys who are competing right up with them who probably could have never broken 15 in the 5K. So what are some of those factors that will show success once we start getting up in those high distance races?
Yeah, the long distance races are pretty mind-boggling, because you're right. I mean, you'll see guys that on the 5K might have a full 1 minute difference on their PR, but then in a distance like 100 miles, it doesn't matter as much. I would say that one of them is probably like how strong their stomach is. Like, can they really handle like fueling a lot and really getting a lot of calories in while they're running? Another one is like, do they just enjoy it? Because I think there's a big difference from saying, like, I think I have the ability to be a great 100 miler, to I really enjoy pushing myself against this terrain for that long of a distance. Because somebody who's willing to embrace the pain is going to have a lot more success, because they're not like wondering if they're going to go through a lot. They're expecting it. They're embracing it. And so that's another one. The mental side, efficiency is really big. Whether their stride is efficient for something super super long, or not. And the last one probably I would say is just do they really really like to put the training in, because I think for 100 miles you can't get away with not doing the right training and not getting the right like vert and just muscle strength. So those are some factors in success for something that long.
Yeah, and talking about training, training is going to be obviously very different for an ultra runner. What does your training look like on a week to week basis in terms of volume, vert, and recovery? I mean, what does a normal week look like for you?
This year, I've kind of gone back up a little bit in my training volume. I would say I'm averaging about 85, 90 miles a week and about 10,000 to like 13,000 feet of vertical gain. So those two factors play a big role. Last year, because I was kind of adjusting to being a dad, I kind of took a step back, and I knew I had planned for it. I knew I had to sort of just get into a new lifestyle, a new way of life, and be there for my son. This year, I think what I've noticed is because I'm putting in a little bit more training, my body's not worried or afraid of like a 20-mile run. It's just like that's just kind of normal, and I get in one or two of those a week, and so it's not a big deal. So that really helps. I tend to still do one kind of more interval speed workout day a week. That could be short intervals like 800s or 1 mile repeats, or it could be tempo running. I think that efficiency really helps, and I just think overall fitness and a higher cardio and VO2 max is going to be beneficial. But the thing that changes in trail running, ultra running, is you really want to have those long mountain training days. And for that, I put more emphasis on the amount of vert and the up and down than I do on the distance. So, for example, if I can do a 20-mile run with 6,000 or 7,000 feet of gain, I think that goes a lot farther than a marathon that's flat, because you're not only out there for a lot longer of time, but when you're going up and down mountains, it's really pushing your muscular system, and it's breaking down your quads, and it's forcing you to learn how to take nutrition in while still running up and down. And so all those factors are why I like to put more emphasis on those runs versus some of the shorter workouts. So I still structure my week with like, two easier days, one or two longer days, one workout day with a tempo, and then the rest I really just kind of just what's fun. So if I have an extra day to get out and play on the trails, that's just going to get me more up and down without taxing me. So that's a big role in it as well.
Yeah, I hear there's a little bit of speed, which obviously that's important to add into your training lineup, but what's most important is vert and volume, and that at the end of the day, that's going to prepare you for race day. That's you're doing long miles on the trail, so you got to kind of train how you're going to race. And the races, I know that you've had some success in the past, UTMB, Western States, and then there's just a whole list of races that you've done. What would you say is probably one of your most favorite ultras that you've competed in?
That's such a hard question. And actually, like, I had been thinking about it. Like, what would be my favorite one? Um, I would probably say one of the ones that just shocked me, but in a good way, was this race I did in Italy in Giro de Mont. And it's a sky race. And that year, it was part of the long distance mountain running world champs. And that was super cool because you went over like 3 different peaks, and that area was just so beautiful. And it was pretty close to the border of Switzerland and France. And so it was just a really phenomenal area that shocked me. Like I wasn't expecting it to be that beautiful. But definitely the UTMB atmosphere is really, really hard to beat. I've never done the full lap. Last year was my first time going out there, and I did CCC, the 100K. And so I still have a goal of getting back out and doing the full 105 miler. And that was just phenomenal. Like I was so excited, like so happy the majority of the race, because it's just view after view and mountain after mountain, and these amazing towns that you come into with just crowds of people, just what you kind of dream of. And so it's like you're living a dream there. You feel like you're kind of in the Tour de France, but with trail running. And so I would say that's my favorite. I think that the true like rugged mountain experience is what I like the most. And yes, it's fun to run some fast like paces, but there's nothing like just testing yourself against a historic mountain range.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all the video footage of UTMB and it looks spectacular, but I can only imagine what it actually looks like when you're in the mix running and seeing those views. So I'm sure it's amazing.
Yeah, it's unreal. Like the race takes off and you feel kind of like you do like in Chicago Marathon. Like it's just like thousands of people around you, like just thousands. And then you even wonder, like some of the people take off and they run like their first mile in like 5 minutes, and you know they're not going to keep up the pace, but it's just the excitement and the adrenaline and the energy just feeds into everyone, and you can't help it.
Well, I know you're an experienced ultra racer, and what comes with running ultra races is, picking the right shoe on race day. I know you've been a major factor in creating a couple shoes with Brooks, so I want to get into that. But first on up, let's talk about what is your current shoe lineup looking like right now?
I definitely have a few shoes that I'm rotating. So I've actually really loved the Caldera 4s because they're a little just more cushioned, and they just provide the ability to kind of put in more miles. And the shoes that we tend to use here in Bend are for kind of fast flowing trails, because other than like Smith Rock and then the mountains that open up in the summer, we don't have a lot of like technical trails here. And so we tend to go for the just those fast flowing shoes. So the Caldera 4s are a big one right now. But for performance and for those rugged trails that I get into, and when I'm prepping for something like a fastest known time or a fastest summit up a peak, I've been using the catamounts, and that's mainly because they're the shoe that can handle all the different terrain. So they can handle going fast. They can handle the rocks. They have a rock plate in there, and they're light enough and fast flow enough, and they also have that DNA flash, which is going to give you the cushion. And so when you're looking for those fast like performances on rugged trail, you need a shoe that can withstand the terrain, that they're not going to like rip apart, or they're not going to break down when you're hammering, and you want them to last more than one run. So that's another component.
Yeah. Well, the catamount, that is a shoe that I just heard about recently. It was kind of a shoe that got dropped from Brooks out of nowhere, and I actually do have it with me here. And what makes the catamount to me so exciting is Brooks released their Hyperion Tempo recently, which was kind of their new road performance training shoe, and it had that DNA flash midsole. This also has that same midsole. Have you used the Hyperion Tempo, and how would you compare the two to one another?
I've definitely used both. I would say that in terms of feel, like how your feet feel with the cushion and the comfort of every step, they're very similar. The main difference is that the Hyperion Tempo is going to have a much thinner upper because when you're on road, you don't need as much support over your feet, right? The catamount's going to have way more protection over your feet. It's going to be a tiny bit more snug, and it's going to have toe protection as well because a lot of times when you're on trails, you hit a rock, you knock over a rock, and it falls on your feet, and you're also just jarring a lot more. Your feet are having to do so much more work side to side that they needed to address that. But what's really neat is it's the exact same DNA flash midsole. So the way that your feet are going to feel in terms of responsiveness and bounce, it's going to be very, very similar and very cushioned. And so I love that because I think people are starting to realize that cushion can still be fast and responsive, but it prevents you from breaking down your muscles fast. And so in long distances, that's a big factor because you might feel good 5 miles in, but do you feel good 15 or 20 miles in? And so I think both of these shoes really address that concern. And it's awesome to have that translated onto the trails.
Yeah, I think these super foams, these highly responsive foams are, we're seeing them a lot recently, and every brand is kind of bringing out their own. And Brooks, as far as I know, this is the first that has kind of used that responsive foam in a more trail-oriented shoe. When we talk about these foams, it's all about the responsiveness. And on the roads, it kind of makes sense. You feel that bounce off on the road. How does that responsiveness feel on the trail, and what are the benefits over, maybe some of the past trail shoes you've used?
I think it still makes a difference to have responsiveness on the trail, even though it's not as much. So, right, on a road, you're going to really see it a lot more. On a trail, you're not going to, but it's still generating force. Like you're still trying to generate a faster cadence. And when you really notice it even more is on the downhill. So, uphill running, you have to really plant your feet, you have to lean forward, and you have to really have a firm push off that's going to propel you forward. Downhill running, it's a lot like road running. You're really touching the ground as little as you can, and you're trying to get on your toes so that you're not wasting a lot of time on the ground. And so when you notice it is on those downhills, especially those long, fast, flowy downhills, you'll notice the cushion and the responsiveness, and you'll notice that you're just getting so much more out of each stride. And so that's the interesting thing is you don't feel it as much on the up, but on the down, you almost feel it double that you would on a road because you're flying. You're trying to use gravity with you and just really lean into it and go. So you don't want to break. You don't want to stop your energy from moving forward. So it's fun. It makes it really fun to test things out on those downhills.
Yeah, I mean, I think the trail running world right now, the revolution we've seen in shoes is just starting, and there's a lot of cool things to come. And obviously, we've got the catamount, which I'm very excited to start putting in the miles. And I've already put plenty of miles in the Tempo, and I can already say from that, the DNA Flash is an awesome compound. It's not hype. It's responsive and it performs. But at the end of the day, Brooks is continuing to innovate, and I know we hinted at it earlier, but you were testing out a new pair of their racing shoes in your 100K attempt. What was that like to use kind of Brooks's latest generation racer, and what do you see for the future from Brooks Racing?
Yeah, that's a great point. I felt so confident actually when I got the pair of the Hyperion Elites, which it's a very similar feel to the Tempos, but it's gonna have the carbon plate in there. And I just think that that new technology is really a game changer, and it's really helping people be not only way more efficient in their stride, but it's also like saving energy and really saving your legs. And I was curious, like I was watching to see whether they were going to ban the the new technology, and I had my doubts. And then when it was announced that it's gonna be okay to use it, I think that a lot of these companies were happy that they invested time in developing this new way of performance. And so I've just been really grateful that Brooks has a shoe that can match what's out there, because as an athlete you would feel sort of like shorthanded to not be able to go up against these guys that have the new technology. And that really helped me when I ran the 100K, because I was like, okay, this is gonna provide a boost, and it's gonna help me make that pace that I need to run a little more realistic and more comfortable. And I love that the shoe, compared to the Tempo, has a little bit more snug, because they're keeping in mind that when you're racing, you're really going to kind of push your body forward and use your toes a little bit more. And so they kind of made it in keeping in mind that you're performing, you're really trying to push off as much as you can. So that extra snugness was very important. And the sock like feel to the shoe is still very similar, so they didn't lose that. And I honestly, I don't know if you've gotten to try them, but I don't notice that there's a spring, which is a good thing, right? Because I feel like it would sort of feel kind of just clumsy if you could feel it. And so they found a way to get what they need out of it without the shoe feeling clumsy and weird. And that is,
Yeah. I did run in the original Brooks Hyperion Elite that came out earlier this year, and I thought it was a great concept, and it showed that Brooks was in the game. They're making carbon-plated shoes, but now that they're adding in this DNA flash into version 2, which is what you used in your attempt, I think they're just further increasing performance. And when you talk about like this spring and performance in these shoes, the plate helps, but at the end of the day, the foam is what is really going to elevate these shoes to the next level. And I think the Elite 2, which is hopefully coming out in the next few months, is going to really put Brooks on the map of the serious marathon runner.
Yep. And I was grateful that that's what I got to use, because it's a little bit wider of a platform, and it really has that feel for cushion as well. So it's like it just combines the two features really smoothly, and so I mean, just those little things, they go a long ways when you're having to run an ultra.
Yeah, well, I personally am very much looking forward to trying those shoes out, and I think marathon runners all across the world are looking for little ways to enhance performance. So that shoe's something to be excited about. Are there any other shoes, either in your daily training lineup or your racing lineup, that you've been using or that you're excited to come out in the future?
Yeah, one of the shoes that I have here just in case is the Divide, and that's a shoe that is kind of for people that are just getting into trail running, and they still want to be able to run perhaps some smoother soft surfaces, but they also want to start testing out the little bit like techier trails. I really like the Divide in it, and in terms of price, it's a lot more affordable too. It takes a lot. Like I've been surprised how much the traction can withstand the rocks and the rough terrain. They just don't get beat up like some other shoes do. So I have that on my lineup. It's definitely one that comes out when I'm going into more like the city trails, I guess you would say, because we have plenty of those here. We have a lot of those smoother trails that are just faster and more runnable. So that's a shoe that I use for that. And I think that I've been using the Tempo a lot as well. So that's one that I have in my lineup. That's for sure my Tempo running. A lot of times that's my track shoe, just because right now it would hurt me to have spikes and to use really minimal shoes, because I'm not used to it, and it would beat up my calves a little bit too much. And so I would rather go for the Tempo, because all I really need out of it is that efficiency and the effort. And I'm not going to be racing on the track anytime soon, so I don't need to go any faster than that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate talking shoes with you. That's what really gets me excited, and it's nice to hear from a trail pro to get your insights on what you use. But I'm going to move this forward to kind of end this out with our fan questions. We reached out on social, got a couple questions back from your fans, so I'm going to lay it on. Question number one is, Mario, what's your go-to food for fueling during an ultramarathon?
Oh man, that is a good one. So in terms of performance, I go Tailwind and Honey Stinger gels. So those are my two like performance kind of nutrition things. Um, in comfort, I can get bananas down really well. I don't know why. Bananas are easy, and I tend to like cookies or something, like some kind of like little dessert. And I won't eat the whole thing, but it just makes me feel like I'm in a happy place. So it's a little bit, just kind of getting into that positive mental state.
Yeah, I think with the ultra marathons in particular, you really got to find the individual thing that works best for you, and everyone's going to be different. So,
Everyone has a different tastes for sure.
next question: what's the farthest distance you've ever ran?
100 miles. That's
100
been
miles.
the longest I've gone. I've done it 3 times, two in races, and hope to do it again.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll see another one, and maybe something. I mean, has 200 ever been on your thought process, or is that something just crazy?
I just think there's enough prestige in 100, and it's just such an awesome distance that right now I don't have a desire to race a 200. Maybe like something like 150, but as a FKT, like if it was like the Tahoe Rim Trail or something like that, that would be fun. That sounds intriguing, because then it's different than a race atmosphere. But when you're like racing against other athletes, I think the 100 is enough. I really do. But
Yeah.
maybe in 10 years I'll be like one of those crazy guys.
Yeah, it almost seems like every year that goes by, you always got to test the limits a little more. So,
Yeah, exactly.
question number three: have you ever got lost on the trails? Any crazy stories?
Yeah. Oh man.
Probably too many to count.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, I've gotten lost like probably a good 5 times. Two of them were in races, which was awful. One of them was the Gorge Waterfalls 100K. Somebody like purposely tampered with the course markings and put it up just into the mountain. And so, you found yourself just like up in the mountain, and all of a sudden the trail was gone. And then we went back up and down a couple times to see if we were missing something. But no, sure enough, like somebody just messed with it. And so that was pretty bad. Yeah, I wasn't able to finish the race after that. I was in a bad place, just like losing all my nutrition and running like like up and down this mountain a few times. um, the other time I can think of that was a hard one. I was actually running the Bandera 100K the year before I won it, and after the 50K, I found out that I had accidentally gotten sent off course by one of the officials, and it was an accident. It was an honest mistake, but it was hard to like get to the next aid station and find out that I had been running 6 miles in the wrong direction. That was bad. I literally just this last weekend, I didn't get completely lost, but I was doing a route in Washington that's very, very hard to navigate. And so I kept taking wrong turns. And luckily, I had the map on my phone. And so I would see my little route and the arrow, like I was like off course, and I would have to like come back. And so I kept kind of like finding myself in this like, oh my gosh, like mental state of, am I going to get through this route like today, or am I going to be here all night? So those fears definitely come, and they can kind of tense you up a little bit. But for everyone that's listening, I would tell you this, like really, really research when you're going to go out like into those rugged like wilderness trails, because you got to know what you're getting into. Like I knew for this route, there's a lot of water sources. So that helps you feel safe, you know, when you know that every 2 or 3 miles, you're going to see water. And so things like that are important to know ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, I know just from my own personal experience, when you get lost on a trail, it can sometimes feel so daunting, and you just keep going mile after mile, not sure if you're even going to make it out. And when you actually do make it through the clearing, there's almost this like sigh of relief that like, you know, everything's going to be okay. So I can understand what you went through, especially in a race, which that's you know, you can prepare, but at the end of the day, especially in these ultra marathons, there's just so much you can't prepare for.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
I think almost every trail runner that you talk to is going to say they got lost, which it's like almost like just part of the culture. Like they all have their story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Final question for you for today. Who is your favorite competitor to race on the trails? I know you've been at this for years. So is there someone that you've kind of had a rivalry with through the years, or just someone you really like to compete against?
Yeah, I really look up to Max King, who's kind of a local friend here, and he's also just a guy that I admire so much, and I love racing him, and he's beat me way more times than I have him. So I I really don't even think it's fair to say that I've been much of a match for him, but to be honest, I really respect him. I've loved the way that he's just been really humble about his performances and his achievements. Max is such a fierce competitor, and you know, when you're on the trails with him, he's going to give you his best. And I just really respect that, because you know, we can kind of get caught on this trend even in the trail world where it's about like breaking records and it's about stats. But for me, what's always drawn me into competition has been that foot race, like having guys that are next to you, racing next to you. And in ultras, you end up, you know, spreading out, but at the beginning you're really in a pack, and you're really feeling the energy from everyone around you. And so I just really like racing with Max, and I just like that he always gives his best. And even when he has bad days, he really tries to finish it out. And he's just somebody that I respect and admire a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Max, because we've had Max here to the warehouse before, and I mean, I'm just the biggest fan as well. He's so talented, such a friendly guy. I just like hanging out with him. You know, we went all around slow running, and he's just a super cool guy. And the versatility he has, because a lot of people don't realize he's got such amazing credentials on the track. marathon Olympic trials qualifier, and then of course everything he's done in the ultra scene. The dude's just like killed it in every aspect of the sport. So such an amazing competitor, and it really shows in whatever he competes in, he just grits it out and can compete against the best.
Definitely. I love that. Totally.
Well, awesome, Mario. We are so excited that you can make it on. We've been talking about, because once we heard that you were playing such a role on the catamount, we were like, we got to get you on and talk about trail, talk about these treadmill records. For people who want to follow you in the future, people want to see these treadmill records continue to go down, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, I've made it pretty easy. Every one of my handles is just Mendoza Runner. So you can find me on Instagram, Mendoza Runner, Twitter, Mendoza Runner. My Facebook page is also just Mario Mendoza, and it's Mendoza Runner as well. So any of those work. I have a website that I'll admit I'm a little rough on trying to keep it updated, but it's mendozarunner.com. If people wanted to email me, they can email me at mmendozarunner at gmail.com. So any of those work, and I appreciate the support. I appreciate the encouragement, and I get inspired by anyone that's out pushing themselves on the trail at any ages. So it's just cool for me to see the sport growing.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we can make this happen. We've been talking about you for, forever. So many of the people here at the warehouse know you, have known you for a while. So it's great to finally make a connection. And if this 100-mile treadmill record ever goes down, please let us know, because we wanna support you and make sure that, these records continue to get better and better.
Yeah, I feel like I'd have to do it somewhere in SLO County. Just I think it would make sense, It's just like do a little tour and just hit all the spots that are meaningful to me. So please say hi to everyone for me. Say hi to Joe. I miss everyone out there, and I hope I can come out and run on the Montaña de Oro trails soon.
Awesome. If you make it out here, I will surely take you out on the trails. And yeah, I appreciate you once again. And until next time, this was the Running Warehouse Connection.